Ananias Maté's escape from South Africa's C-Max prison in 2006 is one of the most infamous jailbreaks in the country's history. Initially believed to have used Vaseline to squeeze through a tiny gap in his cell, the truth was far more calculated and revealing of deep corruption within the prison system. Maté, a notorious Mozambican criminal with a long rap sheet, didn't just slip away using slippery substances. He walked out after paying a bribe of 80,000 rands to prison warders. This escape was not a solo effort, but the result of meticulous planning by Maté's gang, who had raised the ransom in his home village of Mozambique. Maté had become a high-ranking member of a cross-border crime syndicate operating from this village, a hub for illicit activities targeting South Africa. His criminal empire included everything from violent robberies to drug trafficking, and his criminal exploits had made him notorious across both countries. Maté's escape was no ordinary event. The bribe, paid by 4 members of his gang, involved money that had been collected through illicit channels back in Mozambique. This was not the first time Maté had used bribery to escape from the grasp of the law. Prior to this daring breakout, he had already bribed his way out of a high-security facility at Johannesburg Central Prison. Using a lesser sum of 15,000 rands, his escape in Johannesburg marked the beginning of a 9-month reign of terror as he moved across the country, committing crimes without fear of capture. The C-Max escape, however, was particularly daring. On November 18, 2006, Maté, who had been locked in the highest security facility in the country, managed to manipulate the system. The warders who helped him had unlocked his handcuffs and leg irons, allowing him to leave the prison without any physical restraints. Maté's gang had, in effect, smuggled him out through the very system meant to keep him imprisoned. The warders' actions raised suspicions of wider corruption within the Department of Correctional Services, and investigations revealed that the escape could not have happened without inside help. Maté's escape was followed by a massive manhunt, but his luck didn't last long. Despite the swift action by authorities and alerts at border posts, Maté managed to slip away, with reports suggesting that his gang had planned his escape down to the smallest detail. The saga didn't end with his escape from C-Max. Maté's family, including his 2 wives, had been aware of the plans, with his wives claiming that the gang had promised to get him out of prison and that Maté would soon return to their village. However, the police had already ramped up their efforts to capture him, making it impossible for him to reach his destination. His escape was a huge embarrassment for the Department of Correctional Services, which had failed to contain one of the country's most dangerous criminals. This prompted a series of investigations and the suspension of several prison officials. 6 warders were eventually fired for their roles in the escape, but the scandal didn't stop there. Further inquiries revealed that Maté had not only used money to bribe officials, but had also received help from a network of people, both within and outside of the prison system. For a criminal of Maté's caliber, freedom was always a fleeting moment. His reign of terror continued after he was initially recaptured, as he once again terrorized South Africa with his gang's activities. His crimes ranged from violent robberies to sexual assaults, and his notoriety grew. The police eventually caught up with him again, but not before he had committed countless crimes across different provinces in South Africa. One of Maté's more chilling tactics was his use of poison, which he used to disable dogs before carrying out his crimes. He would spike food with a pesticide called aldicarb, which would then poison the animals guarding the homes of his victims. This allowed him to break into houses and steal valuables while avoiding detection. His victims, often women, were subjected to brutal assaults, with Maté showing no mercy. The government's response to Maté's escapes and subsequent crimes was a mix of anger and disbelief. Officials were keen to understand how a man could slip through the cracks of the justice system so easily, despite being one of the country's most dangerous criminals. At the time, correctional services officials insisted that Maté must have had inside help to escape from the high-security prison, but no clear answers were forthcoming. Even as investigations continued, the possibility of more bribes and corruption within the prison system loomed large. Maté's escapes and the subsequent fallout had a lasting impact on South Africa's prison system. They led to a significant reevaluation of the country's security protocols and an awareness of how widespread corruption could undermine the justice system. While Maté was eventually caught again and faced additional charges, his story remains one of the most audacious in South African criminal history. His escape serves as a reminder of how ingenuity, combined with financial resources, can breach even the most secure systems. It also exposed deep flaws in the system, where money could easily sway officials, enabling a dangerous criminal to walk free. Mate's case also shed light on the complex web of corruption that existed in South Africa's correctional facilities, suggesting that the issue was not limited to a few bad apples, but a systemic problem that needed to be addressed. What happened to Mate after his escape is a reflection of both the resilience of the law enforcement system and the persistence of criminal networks. His escape, followed by a bloody spree across the country, showed the lengths to which a man with a deep understanding of the system could go to evade justice. Despite the many people who tried to capture him, including a special task force, Mate's life of crime came to an end only after a series of brutal and calculated actions. In the end, Ananias Mate's escape from CMAX prison is a testament to the power of money and corruption in the criminal underworld. His story is one of both brilliance and tragedy, as it exposes the flaws in South Africa's criminal justice system while also highlighting the dark side of human ingenuity. Whether or not he used Vaseline to slip through a gap in his cell is irrelevant to the broader story. Mate's escape was a calculated move by a criminal mastermind who understood the vulnerabilities in the system. And while Mate may have evaded justice temporarily, his legacy remains one of South Africa's most infamous criminals.